Hello everyone, this is JS Reviews, and today we'll be talking about the fourth studio album by post-hardcore band from California, Being as an Ocean. This album is called Waiting for Morning to Come, and that album title is very appropriate for how long we had to wait for this record. This record was originally supposed to be released on June 9th, 2017 on Equal Vision Records. However, the band decided to drop Equal Vision Records, and they decided to buy out their contract, and now they are an independent band. And I think the reason why that was is because Equal Vision refused to promote this album in any way. Like, there were no pre-orders available, you couldn't pre-order, there was no like ads or whatever. It was just June 9th, and it just kind of disappeared, and then it got to June 9th and there's no album, and we're like, why is there no album? And then so they decided to drop Equal Vision, and they are now an independent band, and I'm really proud of them for doing that. So Being as an Ocean are one of my favorite bands of all time. They're definitely in my top 3 favorite hardcore bands of all time, and this new album is definitely different than their last 3. It's more focused, I think. It's definitely more effort was put into this than I think their self-titled album, per se, which in my opinion that is easily their worst record. But yeah, I think this album is another great album by Being as an Ocean. They've released 2 perfect albums, 5 out of 5 for sure. That would be the 2012's Dear God, and then 2014's How We Both Wondrously Perish. But then 2015, you get the self-titled album, which I didn't think was nearly as good as those previous 2. There were still some great albums on it. There were still some great songs on that album, but it just kind of fell short. And Waiting for Morning to Come, I'll say that they released one song from it called Dissolve back in like February of 2016, and they only released it because that was when they signed to Equal Vision initially, and it was just a promotional song. They signed to a bigger label, and they decided to release a song, and then not another song released till September of 2016 when they released OK. And I loved Dissolve. I love that song. It's one of my favorite songs by them to date. But then I thought that OK, the second song they released, was probably their worst song they've ever done at that point. And in my opinion, it's their second worst song they've ever done. There is one song on this album that I think is worse than OK, but yeah, OK wasn't as good. And then nothing's released until they finally released 2 songs before this album dropped when they went independent a few weeks back. They released Thorns and Black and Blue, and we'll get to my thoughts on those songs when we get to the full album review. So anyway, this was a very long anticipated release. We, in a sense, waited for morning to come, and we waited, and we finally got it. Here we are with their new album, and we're going to go through this album track by track, and I'm going to tell you everything. So first song, Pink and Red, is a piano interlude. There's lots of piano interludes on this album. It's a piano interlude that's not much to it, and it leads right into Black and Blue, which is the first song of substance on this album. And Black and Blue, I really like that song quite a bit. When it first came out, I'm like, yeah, it's good, but like, they've done better songs. But this song's definitely grown on me. It's probably the most emotional song on this album, and I really like it about it. I really like Michael, his voice on there, and Joel sounds really good on his screams near the beginning of the track, and I like how Joel kind of sings on this track anyway. This is kind of a song about remembering a past love or a past thing you used to love and now it's gone. Like, I remember me and you is a common theme. Some of the lyrics on here are really deep, like, have you ever heard that love is a metaphor for the way you failed me and now I'm failing you? I mean, think about that. So Black and Blue, a great first song, and then we get to so after Black and Blue, we get to another piano interlude, and it's called Floating Through Darkness They Always Seem To, where it's another piano interlude, not much to it, and it leads right into the next song, Glow. And Glow is definitely one of my favorites on the album. Glow, lyrically, it's kind of a follow-up, I guess, to their song And Their Consequences, which closed out their self-titled album. And by the way, And Their Consequences is in my top 3 Being as an Ocean songs of all time. There will be a top 10 Being as an Ocean song video on this channel at some point in the near future, just to give you guys a heads up. So anyway, we get to Glow. I think Michael sounds his best on this song as he does on the entire album, and honestly I really like singing along with Michael in Michael's singing parts. Another thing that's really great on this song, and especially this entire album, is the lead guitar work from Tyler Ross. And Tyler Ross is one of my favorite lead guitarists of all time. I love his guitar work. It's so effective, but still it's really good and really effective, and it really sets the mood for all these songs. And Glow is another great track with some great guitar from Tyler. There's a lot of kind of more synthy things on this song, though. So if you're into that kind of thing, I think you'll love this song. So, yeah. And then we get to another piano interlude called And Fade Away with Morning Came. Now, notice something. Those last three, the three most recent track titles all kind of go together. Like, we have Floating Through Darkness. They always seemed to glow and fade away when morning came. So, just kind of pay attention to that. I think that's really the only case of it in this album. So the Floating Away Through Morning Came leads right into Okay, which I mentioned earlier was initially the second song released for this album. And Okay, I initially thought this song was, okay, like the title said. But however, it has grown on me quite a bit. I really like Joel's part on this one. I really like the opening guitar from Tyler. It reminds me a lot of some of the Dear God songs from their first album. And honestly, I think if you really like their first album, I think this album is definitely the closest they've gotten to their first album. And I do have a good friend who loves their first album, Dear God, to death. And for good reason. It's a really good album. But anyway, Okay is definitely growing me. The only thing I don't really like is I think it was kind of anticlimactic, and Michael's part seemed a little bit cliche. The lyrics were a little bit cliche there, but it's kind of just a typical song about you really miss someone that you've been with for a while, and there was a time when I felt okay. That line is kind of what closes out the song, and I really like how the song closes out with the little synthy da 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 da. It's very atmospheric at the very end. So we get to the next piano led interlude, which is called And As If My Problems Would Slip Away, or something like that. Okay, as if all my problems would slip away. That kind of goes together too. But this one might be my favorite of the piano interludes on the album, and I really like it. It goes right into the next song, Dissolve, where Dissolve, I mentioned earlier, was the first single released for this album initially. This was the first one on Equal Vision, but this song actually is a little bit different than the version that was released on Equal Vision. And sadly, I think I prefer the Equal Vision version of Dissolve rather than the album version. And that's because Joel screams the verses instead of kind of speaks them. And I think when he spoke them on the other version, it was more effective. That's really the only change to this version of the song. And I think that this song is still one of my favorites on the album, but I do prefer the other version. So now here, in my opinion, is where the album gets good. We get to the next song, Thorns, which was the first song that was released on their first song they released as an independent band. And it's the 9th track on Waiting for Morning to Come, and it's probably in my top 3 on the album. Thorns is a great song in my opinion. It starts out very soft with kind of some water drop sound effects, and then Michael comes in with his vocals, and Michael sounds really good on this one, and goes into Joel screaming, saying, "Careful, I'm beautiful, but you don't like what's within," and it really builds up to this huge build-up, and it goes into where Joel screams, "Shake the death from your bone," which is a repeated line throughout the song, and this song appears to be about overcoming things, and later on Michael sings, "Our seeds won't determine how tall we will grow," and that we will grow really tall and rise above our problems and shake the death from our bones, which the instrumentals sound like something from an action movie, which is really cool. And I really like the ending of the song where Joel screams, "Will dwelling in my negatives bring out the light?" Where he's kind of questioning, should we dwell on our negatives or should we do something to go on ahead? So Thorns, a great track. So after Thorns, we get to the next song called The Powers That Be. And initially, this is probably the biggest flaw on the album in my opinion, is it's actually The Powers That Be, but it's backwards. The words are backwards, so I'm like, okay, what is this? So then I play the song, and I'm like, what? This song is backwards. And then I find out that on YouTube, if you play the song backwards, it's an actual song. And honestly, if you play it backwards, it is a great song. Like, you really got to listen to the song played backwards, and you hear the song, and I think it's definitely one of the best on the album. The lyrics are really deep about like religion and stuff, but that's what this band is. This band is not technically a Christian band, but a lot of these band members are Christian, and especially Joel, and they are no stranger to kind of hinting at religious beliefs in their songs, and we definitely get that on some of these songs toward the end of the record, and especially on The Powers That Be. Great song, it's a kind of big build up as well, a lot like Thorns, and I don't think Michael has any parts on this song, and this is kind of Joel's song. So then we get to the next song, which is called Suddenly I Was Alone, and Suddenly I Was Alone is phenomenal. It's an instrumental track all by Tyler Ross. I think Tyler's was in charge of everything on this song. I really like the kind of repeated guitar riff that goes throughout the instrumental song. It's really effective. It gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it. That's how good of a guitarist and how amazing and effective his guitar lines are. Tyler Ross, great job. If you're watching this video by any chance, props to you. Your guitar work is second to none, in my opinion. Suddenly I Was Alone is a 6-minute long interlude track, which is all instrumental, and like I said, it's all done by Tyler Ross. And Being as an Ocean are no stranger to doing instrumental songs, because they did another one that was about 11 minutes long on their first album, Dear God, which was called It's Really Not As Complicated As You're Making It Out to Be. And in my opinion, that one was also great, and Tyler did a great job with the guitars and stuff on that, but I thought it went on a little too long, in my opinion. My friend Noah would disagree, but I did think it went on a little bit too long, and I think I prefer Suddenly I Was Alone on this album as far as the best instrumental track by Being as an Ocean. So then we get to probably my least favorite song on this album, Blacktop. And the reason why, the song actually samples a song by The Weeknd, which is called Reminder. And I definitely like this song a lot better than the Weeknd song, but honestly, I don't know, it doesn't really fit Being as an Ocean very well, in my opinion, and I didn't really enjoy the lyrics. The lyrics are just kind of Joel's religious beliefs again, but it turns out I ended up enjoying The Powers That Be a lot more than Blacktop. So then we get to the final piano interlude on this album, which is called I Saw Before Me a Bright Red Light and Silently I Stood, which leads right into the closing track, Waiting for Morning to Come. And the closing track, Waiting for Morning to Come, is probably my favorite on the album. It's definitely a perfect way to close out this album. It's what this entire album was building up to. It's the heaviest song on this album, and it kind of sums everything up, where I love the part where Michael sings, I will sing about love even if it's so hard to trust, and it's kind of saying that I will believe in love. Love is kind of the main thing that solves problems, and this band has always been for that, where whenever they play a live show, they always say love can overcome fear, and which is definitely true, and Being as an Ocean has been kind of a big advocate in that department, and I really love how they kind of incorporate it into this song. So yeah, this was a great song. Tyler's guitar work on this song was fabulous, just like on every other song on this album and every other song Being as an Ocean have ever done. Tyler Ross has done an amazing job with everything that he's ever done in his career with Being as an Ocean. And with that, I gotta say, this closed out a great album. I also love the little jazzy outro on this one. It's definitely kind of a change of pace, a breath of fresh air, and I really like that. So, great album by Being as an Ocean. I think, so some overall things, I think the production was great, Joel sounded great, Tyler sounded phenomenal, Michael sounded great, and Ralph on the bass did a great job too, and even their drummer, I'm not sure who recorded the drums on this. I don't know if Jesse Shelley recorded most of this or their current drummer, Anthony Gazel, or something like that. Not sure who recorded it. I think Jesse Shelley recorded the drums for OK and Dissolve, but I think Anthony did the rest. But Being as an Ocean don't have a permanent drummer, and I feel like they need that. With that, I'd say this closed out a great album. I would say this is probably my third favorite album out of 4 by them, but it's definitely way better than their self-titled album in my opinion. And with Waiting for Morning to Come, I think I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. So Let me know what you guys think about this record in the comments down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? No, sue me, Anthony Fantano. But yeah, if you like Being as an Ocean, tell me what your favorite Being as an Ocean song is down in the comments down below. And yeah, another great album by this great band, and there will definitely be a top 10 Being as an Ocean songs coming in the near future. So yeah, Joel, Tyler, Michael, and Ralph, you guys did a great job on this album, and definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. It might even end up being in my top 5 albums of the year list when I do that video at the end of the year. So great album, definitely go check it out, and I will see you guys next time.